You're listening to Sarah Hagan Backstage, with interviews and insights from years inside the music industry. Join Sarah as she talks with masters of their crafts, finding out what makes them tick, both inside and outside of the music business.
Welcome to Sarah Hagan Backstage. My guest today, Matt Kelly, is the drummer for the Dropkick Murphys, and we talk all about their latest tour, their place in the world of Boston sports and in Hollywood, and their charity work. And we also dive into Matt's start as a drummer, and we hear about his influences. So come along with me as I catch up with Matt Kelly. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Sarah, how are you? It's great to see you. It's been a long time.
I'm good. It has been a very, very long time. It was a show. The last time we saw each other was a show in Brockton, Massachusetts, right? You guys were
Lovely city of Brockton, yep.
Brockton, my birthplace, actually.
Okay.
So, yes. Yeah. And you guys were playing with Rancid. It was a great show.
Yeah, it was a big outdoor venue, whatever it was, a big field or something. That was a great show.
Yeah,
we're the hometown-ish show, you know.
It was, right? Yes. Yeah. The fans were like rabid. I remember.
That was pretty special, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's great to see you again, and
thanks for having me in this in such a esteemed company. Man, I get some real heavy hitters. I feel so like humbled being on this featured on the show that you have. Like Lamar Hakeem and like all these amazing drummers and like. Oh man,
well, thank you for saying that. I know a lot of people are going to be excited about this episode. I've been asked about you for quite a while, so we're getting it done.
That's great. I appreciate being on it.
And yes, and thank you. And you are coming off of what for the Dropkick Murphys is like the time of year, right? For you all, you are coming off of St. Patrick's Day shows and like all the shows leading up to it, right?
Yeah. We did it. We were in Europe for about almost 6 weeks, and then a few days off, and bang, right out on the road again in the States, and culminating in Boston for the shows at the new MGM Fenway Theater in House of Blues, and that's just insanity, because all our family and friends are there, and it's become over the years it's become kind of an institution for us. That's the big time. It's the most wonderful time of the year for people who like that sort of thing. Luckily, we do.
Yeah, well, and it's huge, especially for the city of Boston, and you guys do like a few shows surrounding the holiday, and of course, like Boston being such an Irish town, it's highly celebrated. So it just is like the perfect time, and I think everyone looks forward to it very much.
Yeah, it was a blast. We actually did a live stream for one of the shows, and a bunch of people tuned in. A lot of good feedback from that, and that was really nice. And I had never even been into that venue before, the new MGM, the Fenway Theater, and it's just absolutely enormous. Like holy cow! It's like beautifully built. Thoughtfully designed for bands and for fans. Not a bad seat in the house, etc. Whatever. It was pretty awesome.
Absolutely. If anyone hasn't been there before, I was really excited because, as we know, with the music industry being what it is, it over the past few years, a lot of venues have closed. Yeah. And that's been a hard thing, to see like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that place is closing down. And but it was so nice to see some venues open in Boston more recently. Yeah. Right. So MGM at Fenway, and then there's a new place at the Garden. There's a newish place.
I haven't been there yet.
It's cool. It's really cool. Yeah. So so it was really nice. But that place is great. So that I'm sure was a blast to play like it is every year.
That was great. Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
And your tour of Europe, did you guys, I wanted to ask the question, do you play in Ireland? Have you played in Ireland? Okay. So
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just wondering like how it compares to, of course, Boston shows filled with a bunch of Irish people. Like, being in Ireland playing, how is that?
Well, it's amazing. We hadn't done Belfast for many years up in the north, and that show was a blast. But also Dublin, we played at what used to be called the Point. I'm at a loss as far as what the new name is, but the last time we had played that venue was opening for the Pogues on their Christmas tour in 2005, I think.
Wow.
6, and we've subsequently played there. We've done Vicar Street a few times. A couple of years ago, we did a 3-night stand there at the venue Vicar Street, which was great. My wife and my son were able to come last minute. She had something fall through in work. It's like, hey, we're gonna come. It was great spending time with family. And in the venue there, the fans come from all around. It's like, Dublin's kind of a destination place. So a lot of people from all around Ireland came, of course, but many people from England and over on the continent, and a lot of Americans were there too. And the shows in Dublin are usually a real blast. And this last time was definitely no exception. It was a really big one. Gosh, I don't know the capacity, but it was up there 6,000-7,000 people. It was huge.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a real blast. And the shows in Ireland have always been fun. I think our first show there was probably 1999, and we didn't know what to expect because were people going to be like, oh, look at these Americans trying to play Irish music, but because a lot of people didn't know the cultural continuum, in Boston.
Yes, the heritage.
People of the heritage, exactly. Yeah, and we were embraced by the people of Ireland, if you will, on a small level, and then slowly building to what it is now, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. And I would think it's really interesting too, because you're bringing a lot of like traditional Irish music and sound to a whole new group of people, right? So that's pretty great.
Yeah, I think keeping I mean, we're obviously not a traditional band, but
right.
We definitely give a big nod to traditional music and keeping that spirit alive. I think, and like you said, bringing that to a whole new generation of kids, I think is important because that's, culture is, aside from, architecture and language and this and that, music is a big part of culture. So as I'm sure most people watching this would agree, because that's what all of us are about, is music. So yeah, it's really cool that people have embraced that. And I guess there's a whole genre of bands, like Irish punk, Celtic punk now. It's pretty incredible, like how that the genre has grown. Like you have amazing bands from anywhere from Ireland to Spain to Japan to
yes,
the craziest of places.
You all have inspired a whole lot of music, which is incredible.
It's crazy to see. Yeah.
I grew up, my family, big Irish family, and every year, and really every like family gathering, we would sing. There was always singing, always guitar playing, and here, bring out the sheet music and all the traditional Irish songs. So for me to hear like the next generation learning that too, and hearing the lyrics and everything, it's fun. It's fun to hear. So
yeah, that hits home. Yeah, I hear that the old family gatherings, which sadly the families have become smaller and smaller. But like we had these huge family gatherings like with uncles and aunts and cousins, and it was just insanity. Just like just people bring out the accordions and the
accordions. Yes, my grandfather played accordion, and
I have cousins who play, and all the crazy uilleann pipes, bagpipes, and you name the instrument they play, and it would just be these big sing-alongs in be they in English, be they in Irish or other languages. It was crazy times. As a kid, it kind of made a big impression.
Absolutely. Those are like my favorite memories from childhood. My favorite, and the pictures that we have and videos and all of that. My family actually still gets together often, which is really, really nice. They just had a family reunion that I couldn't make it to.
Oh,
But and they do this, they sing and play instruments, and it's so nice to see. So I love it. It feels like home to me. So
right.
you guys are so great. And the other thing too is I'll randomly be watching a movie and all of a sudden I'll hear a Dropkick song. And I'm just like, wow, that is super cool, and
It's
then
weird, right?
I mean, you must have that. Obviously, where the music is being used, but
Yeah, but sometimes it catches you by surprise. Like when I'm shipping up to Boston was in The Departed.
yes, yeah.
So we had when that came out, that movie came out. We had just stepped when the movie was debuting. We were in Europe on tour or somewhere. Gosh, I think in Europe, and running up to when the film was being released, and on the debut, they had it at a theater down in the theater district. We had stepped off a plane, basically dropped our bags home, got in the car with our girlfriends and wives, and went to the movie theater. So we're sitting there, jet lagged, in the theater, watching Leonardo DiCaprio in the the prison cell, and shipping comes on. It's like, wow, that's weird. And then, of course, in the finale, the car chase scene is playing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, just jet lagged. We're just trying to process what we're seeing and hearing. I mean, it's a Scorsese film and all that, so it was really, obviously, we'd grown up seeing so many of his movies. The guy's directing legend. So just trying to process that, being jet lagged, being sitting there in a theater with your bandmates, watching this and hearing this. It's crazy. Months later, we got sent the DVDs, and then watching it with my wife, sitting down, like, okay, this kind of makes sense. Well, that's pretty cool. Nice. Wow.
Yeah, this is cool, right? It must have been surreal for sure.
It was surreal at first, and again, really hard to process. It was so bizarre, and then you hear it and see it just in the right setting. Like, wow, that was really cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty psyched to be a part of that.
For sure, yeah. And the other thing I think of too, besides movies, is the sports teams, and especially in Boston, you cannot go to a sport game, any sport in Boston, and not hear Dropkick Murphys playing, and it's it's just like part of the culture of here.
Yeah, people either are like so psyched or want to kill me. If I hear that song again, or it's like, it's so cool to hear that, But it's funny. We're at my my son's hockey team, the place where they play. They have music on, and I was on tour, but my wife related the story to me that he had, he was on the bench waiting to come out, and I think either The Boys Are Back or Shipping Up to Boston comes on, and he's like, well, that's weird. The coach is like, well, you don't like that song? He's like, no, that's my dad's song. What? Is it? Yeah, it's my dad's song. He's like, your dad's on the Dropkick Murphys? He's like, yeah. He doesn't. He has no point of rep. He has, he's like, he's seen us play, but I grew up going to see my dad play, and being on the side of the stage, watching the bands or whatever. It makes it so it's no big deal. It's par for the course for you. So right. I think for my son, it's the same thing. Like, yeah, my dad's in Dropkick Murphys, whatever. I mean, that's the way I look at it too. Like, whatever. But I'm lucky and happy to be part of it. But it's like, it's what I do, and I think that's what my dad does. He plays in that band. What? It's just weird, like going even to a college hockey game or a Squirts or Mike's hockey game, and you're hearing your songs.
For sure.
That's crazy, man.
It is crazy. It's crazy to think about. It really is. But
I'm really thankful for it as well. I mean, obviously, it's humbling, and the gratitude I have for it is immense.
Yes, yeah, and I have always seen that about you and appreciated that. And but yeah, I mean, I just think it's pretty amazing to have like your music is kind of the soundtrack to sports, and of course, being in Boston, sports are so huge. They're everywhere, right?
Yep, and even before everybody was winning, it was still. I mean,
it was an anthem for sure. Yes, and speaking of sports too, I mean, have you had some experiences I'm just thinking how much like the Red Sox utilize the music and the Bruins. Have you been able to connect with those teams? I know you're a big hockey fan. Have you had some experiences, been able to go to games and things like that?
Yeah, well, two things. Yeah, at Fenway, the front office have been amazing to us. Beth Crudis, who's higher up there, has always taken care of us. She's like the biggest sweetheart there is. She and her man and her brother Peter always come to the shows, and she's always bringing these unbelievable cupcakes. Like I have to mention the cupcakes; they're awesome.
That's awesome.
She's always taking care of us. She's like, you gotta come to a game. Come to a game. Bring the family. Come on. Just really, just a really accommodating, wonderful person. And with the Bruins, I mean, they we had our song "Time to Go." Not as big a success as Tessie, but at the same time, they've always treated us great. And oddly enough, this last St. Patty's Day, Tuukka Rask was backstage hanging out, and
it's great.
He's like, I got to talk to the drummer, like,
yeah,
because he's been playing drums since second grade.
Yeah. I was going to say that he's a drummer. Yeah.
He was asking me about my warm up routine and my like what do I do to prepare for a show, and this is like, dude, you're like this legendary goalie, and like we're just kind of like picking each other's brains back and forth. Like, how do you get ready? Because it seems, I mean, I don't know if you think this, but drummers and goalies are it seems like we have a similar vibe going on.
They go together.
Yeah,
they go together. Yes, 100%.
It's a weird, like, I think because we're the two stationary guys people on stage, right?
Yes.
So, or in the net.
In the net, right? And you're in the back, and you also hold it down, right? If you aren't on, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of video footage of that. But yeah, it was just funny, like him wanting to pick my brain on how I warm up and how I prepare, and this and that. It's like, wow, that's really cool, really humbling, and talking to this legend. And he was a very cool, down to earth guy. So yeah, then being able to meet people like that, in with the band being in conjunction with the sports world, and that it's pretty amazing, because most people don't get to even run into any of these people, and here I'm able to talk to this guy, meeting people like Bobby Orr or Terry O'Reilly or Red Sox legends. You're just like, man, it's very lucky, very, very grateful for the opportunity to meet these people.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm sure they feel the same way too.
Well.
I'm sure.
Whether they do or not, I'm grateful.
Of course. But it is interesting though that the hockey drumming connection. I mean, there are like Brandon Steinekert from Rancid and Jay Weinberg from Slipknot, and it's like one of those things. There's something there. There is a
vibe there, yeah.
So funny. And did you ever play hockey as a kid? Was that your thing then?
Yeah. I played hockey and soccer. I played deck hockey because we were poor, so we played. It was in Leominster, where I grew up in Massachusetts. I think that was pretty much like the deck hockey center, like of New England, I want to say. So everybody played there, went through there. Always loved it. My dad played pond hockey with his friends and stuff, and I mean, my town, where I grew up, had a huge French Canadian population. There were a lot of mills in the area, so a lot of people came down from Canada to work from Quebec province. So hockey was always huge there, and I hate to say there are a lot of Habs fans. I grew up with a lot of Canadiens fans because they first generation coming down from Quebec, and in one of North for when that team was around. But so that was a big part of my life as a kid. It was just a lot of it was a sport that just clicked for me for some reason.
Again, the drumming hockey connection. It's something.
Someone needs to do a study. What's that?
Someone needs to do a study on that, I think.
Yeah, I think there might be something there.
Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, so the sports thing and movies and there's a it's amazing how ingrained the music has become, not just in this area, but worldwide, really. And but I also want to mention something that's really, really important is the charity work that you all do, because and I see it in the city, of course, but it's just there's always something going on. You guys are the band, and you all are so incredible. There's always something that you're working toward charity wise, and so that just means a lot. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks. No, thank you. That's the Clatta Fund. The Clatta Fund has been, you know, when the band started getting popular, a lot of people we had a lot of requests for charity work and this and that, and like we did a lot before we had before we had our own fund. The thing is, you find out later sometimes some of these charities might be not exactly on the up and up, and there's like most of the money's not going to where it's needed. So
Sure.
when Ken was talking to Bobby Orr quite a bit, the legendary number 4, and he's like, you guys should start your own charity, because that way you can control where the money goes, where it's going, and it's if you set it up properly, you're going to help out a lot of people. And thus far over the years, we've raised millions of dollars for underprivileged children, for alcohol and drug recovery, which is a very important thing, and also people coming back from the military, people being placed back into ordinary life. Unfortunately, with a lot of injuries that people sustain, they're taking heavy painkillers, and not to get too heavy, but the alcohol and drug recovery and the military, the veterans coming home, unfortunately, a lot of overlap, and so we've been able to use the popularity of the band to affect some pretty good change in that sense.
Absolutely, it's amazing. And so
really through our fans, I mean, our fans have, we're not getting these huge donations from companies and stuff. This is like grassroots, like people, a couple bucks here and there, people giving what they can, and that's a beautiful thing, which we're very grateful for.
Absolutely. And I'll put a link too. Is it how can people find that to be able to check it out?
Yeah, they can go to claddafund.org. It's CLADDAGHFUND.org. They can check it out there. There's a lot more information as to where the money goes, who helps out, and stuff like that. It's a worthy charity for sure.
Absolutely. I'll put a link. I'll make sure that that people can just click on the link too in the description. So so I want to go a little bit back in time now and talk about you and coming up. We talked about, the hockey thing, but I want to talk about music. And you mentioned that your dad was a drummer and you grew up seeing him play. Did that inspire you to get into music when you were young?
I mean, I think so. Some of my earliest memories are of like dancing around the living room, him playing records, be it Van Morrison or like the Blues Brothers and stuff like that. And there were the Beatles or the Kinks and Zeppelin. But he and my mom, I'm the eldest of 3. So when I was really young, we'd go see bands. I remember seeing bands like NRBQ when I was 3-4 years old, out outdoor shows. And when I was a little kid, I really wanted to play saxophone, and my dad's like, okay, I'm gonna play saxophone, fantastic. And just one day when I think I was 7 or 8, he had his drum kit in the living room, which wasn't a typical thing. He'd have it at have it at a practice space or another guy's house for practice. But he had it there, he was cleaning it, maintaining it, and had it set up. And I started messing around with it. I'm like, Dad, I think I want to play drums instead of saxophone. It's like, oh, really? Sure. I'm like, yeah, the drums are really cool. I like the drums. It's like, well, you're gonna have to take lessons. And I said, okay, I don't know what lessons are, but yeah, okay. It's like, there's a Don Kirby is a good friend of mine. He's a great jazz drummer, amazing drummer. He's still playing too. So I took lessons from him for 6 years when I was a kid. And yeah, I think so. Yeah, my dad, I don't know if he consciously or subconsciously influenced me to start drumming, but it was always there. Music was pretty much paramount in my life as a little kid. And there were always records being played. We were always going to see bands. Yeah, my dad still plays. He still plays out now and then with his band, and he's a rock solid drummer.
I love that. I love it. And your brother's a bass player, if I'm not mistaken.
Your memory's great. Amazing.
Yeah.
Mike is probably one of the best musicians I know. My brother Mike. He's an unreal bass player. He's a great banjo player. Wow. He actually came and filled in for our bass player Kevin Rowe on our acoustic tour last fall. So I got to play in a band with my brother for the first time since we were kids. So that was really kind of special, Yeah, Mike is unreal. He's played with G.E. Smith and like all these other.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he plays with the James Montgomery Blues Band and all these big names. He's a great blues, jazz, rock and roll player.
That's
unreal.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And I don't actually know how old you were when you got into the Dropkick Murphys. Were you in bands before that? How did that form?
Yeah. Well, actually, oddly enough, our bass player, Kevin Rowe, was the first guy I was in bands with back when he was 11 and I was 12. And I actually left a band I was playing in with him to join the Dropkicks in 1997. I was almost 22 years old when I joined the Dropkicks. I'd been in bands playing out since I was like 12, 13.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been playing out for a good 10 years at the time. I mean, nothing at all on the scale of an actual touring band, Sure. When I joined the Dropkicks, it was, let's see, we started off doing weekends, and they had done one tour of like California months before, but then after I joined, we did like a 2 or 3 week tour of California, and weekends down to Washington, down to places like that, a lot of just really good fun, good memories,
That's great.
Yeah. So, I had known Ken Casey, the leader of the band, I talked to him on the phone a couple of times because they were trying to get shows out where I was in central Massachusetts. Show never materialized, but, just the bug was in his ear. And a mutual friend, Dave Pratt, mentioned to him, he's like, "Oh, you should check out Matt. He's a good drummer." So our bands played together at a show at the Rathskeller in Boston. And then after that, Ken's like, "Hey, would you be interested in trying out for the band? Our drummer's leaving, and he doesn't really want to tour." It's like, yeah, because at that point I'd been going to see Dropkick Murphys at pretty much any show I could because I really dug what they were doing at the time.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was a fan. I knew a few of the songs. They didn't have much out yet. They had a couple 7-inches out and no full lengths out or anything like that. So I knew a few of their songs, so he gave me a tape with a bunch of tunes on it. Learned those and tried out. And the rest is history. So it's
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love how you just referred to the single as a 7-inch because, like,
I mean, there were 7-inch records.
It was, right? Yes. And I also the only way I listen to music really here at home is on a record player. So I am obsessed with vinyl. And I know you're a fan too. Like that's how you listen as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I just was setting up I got a really nice custom made 7-inch shelf with pull out drawers so I could put all my EPs and stuff in because I have a lot of them.
Yeah, you gotta organize them. Are you? I don't know if you're like me. I'm showing my hand with my like bit of OCD that I have, but mine are alphabetized because I'm.
Of course they are. Oh, am I? You kidding me? Kidding me?
Hey,
I'm actually on Saturday, a friend helped me bring the thing downstairs into my music room, and so I said to Liz, I said to my wife, I'm just gonna go down and because I have these comic book boxes that keep my 7-inches in these cardboard boxes. So I had to kind of get them out of there and get them into these drawers and stuff and organize them. And I was like, well, I'm gonna organize them alphabetically, and then I'm gonna keep the early reggae stuff in one big drawer, and I'm gonna keep the instrumental stuff. So yeah, it's all organized,
It's great. We have to be able to find things, right?
What's that?
You have to be able to find them when you want them, right?
It's random. Like, what if I want to? I gotta find that Hammersmith Gorillas 7-inch. Like there's like 3,000 or 4,000 records. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yes.
They're alphabetized.
Yeah.
Boom, you got it right there. Yeah.
Exactly. I have everything. All of my records are alphabetized, and then I have I have all my jazz records separately, and they're alphabetized separately. So that's awesome. That's how my brain works.
That's what I have my jazz separate too. Like, because I have a lot of jazz LPs. Oh, I'm not. I mean, a modest amount. Compared to the rest of them, a little stack like so. Decent, But as far as with the record, with the 7-inches, the reggae records, there's probably a good like 50 or 60 of them. So you got to have a whole drawer for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so actually that makes me think of the question when you were growing up. So you mentioned listening to, I think you said Van Morrison, Led Zeppelin, but you also had like a bit of a jazz influence tw, right?
Yeah. Well, that was Don Kirby, my drum teacher.
Right.
He's still, I mean, a few months ago, I was on tour, but he and some guys did they did Kind of Blue, front to back. He's a great jazz drummer, and he taught me a lot about applying rudiments to the drum kit and stuff. But so like my dad would take me to see jazz bands. Some of his friends play, Don and other guys like Mark Marquis. But when I was a kid, I was like, let's get out of here. I didn't get it yet.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp as a kid, I think. I didn't either.
My son loves jazz. His favorite tune is Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers doing Moanin'. He plays it he figured it out on piano, like just the main riff. But yeah, when I was his age, I was like, I want to play, listen to Led Zeppelin. I want to listen to AC/DC and stuff, which two of my favorite bands. But yeah, the appreciation for jazz came around when I was maybe like 11 or 12. When my teacher was, we had the Ted Baker. The Ted Baker book, was that it? The Ted Baker
I think so.
The syncopation book.
Yes.
Drumming book. He had me doing my constants, the ride and the hi-hat, and then the variables would be reading along to the book. It just kind of gave me a real appreciation for jazz, and I sort of had a decent grasp on it for a few years, and then I kind of lost it, but I just love listening to it,
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that those rock drummers that we love so much had that jazz influence too, because that's what was like before rock and roll. That's what it was.
That was a hard bop, people always sweat John Bonham, which he's probably my favorite drummer, but he was into funk and jazz and soul and stuff like that. And he was a heavy-handed, monster of a drummer, but he had all the finesse of people like Joe Morello and Bernard Purdie and stuff. He had that really, really soulful touch. Not something you think when you think John Bonham, but
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But if you listen, you can hear it for sure. And of course, Charlie Watts. We can't have to mention Charlie and his jazz.
I mean, he up to the end of his life, he'd be down in New York, down at Birdland or whatever, or maybe not Birdland, whatever the jazz clubs, like doing, just hanging out and playing,
Yes.
He had his own band and everything, didn't he? A separate jazz band.
Yeah, separate jazz thing, and the way he set up his kit and everything was so jazzy. There was so he's playing rock and roll on this jazz kit, and actually, speaking of kit setups, you have a unique setup because you're a lefty.
I'm a lefty. Yeah, that's the double-edged sword of being a left-handed drummer. Yeah, definitely. You have that. Especially when you're a kid and you show up at a venue.
Yes.
And you
that
say,
was going to be my question. How did you deal with that?
Well, I usually had to bring a kit because, because you could be like, hey, can I borrow your kit? Yeah, sure, man. Okay, well, I'm a lefty. They make up some excuse. But also, on the other hand, like, hey, man, can I borrow your kit? Yeah, well, I'm a lefty, so are you left-handed? No. I don't know, man. So
Oh,
it definitely it had its challenges.
for sure.
Um, yeah, it's weird because like I write left-handed. I play hockey left-handed, and if I golfed, I guess I would play golf lefty. But I play bass and guitar right-handed. I couldn't imagine playing a backwards guitar.
Yes, that's
But
really interesting. I didn't know that.
the first time I ever picked up a guitar or a bass, it was like this makes sense to me. And then I
Yes.
tried because Ken, our formerly our bass player, Ken is a lefty bass player, and I pick up his
Mhm.
bass. How do you do this? This is so foreign. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but being a lefty drummer, yeah, people like, oh, dude, like that fill you do. What is that? Like, I'd show it to them. Like it's not hard at all. It's just
Yeah.
left-handed, so it's completely counterintuitive. Just put a
Yes.
mirror in front of it, and it's easy as pie. Trust me.
Sure, sure, but it makes no sense to
Yeah,
anyone
it's
watching.
like,
They're like, yeah. Which makes me think about your teacher, like your drum teacher, and how
yeah.
how he must have had to adjust his teaching, right?
Well, the funny thing is, he's a lefty,
Okay.
and but this guy, this hot ticket, he taught himself to play right-handed because he was just a monster drummer. So when I was taking lessons from him, he had already switched to right-handed, but he was a
Mhm.
naturally a left-handed drummer. He
Wow.
could sit down. So if I was having trouble, he'd just sit down on the lefty situated kit and just bang it out. See, that's how it goes. Okay,
That's amazing.
so that was cool. Yeah.
That's yeah. The only Mike Mangini comes to mind when you said that because I don't know if you've ever seen him. He can play right-handed or left-handed,
Yeah,
and
he's ambidextrous. It's crazy.
it's
Yeah,
amazing. I
yeah,
mean, that's fascinating to me. I'm right-handed drummer, of course, but
yeah.
like I remember my drum teacher telling me, like, when I was a kid, try to do everything with your left hand that you would normally do with your right hand. So I went
Ooh,
through a whole phase of, I'd be eating dinner awkwardly
yeah, that's a great
and brushing
idea.
my teeth. And it
Oh,
it helped. It did help just to kind of develop those muscles and that hand-eye coordination with your other hand because
the
it is
fine
so
motor skills.
strange, right?
Yeah, and you need the fine motor skills, right? Like how
Yes.
a child is learning, to handle things, playing with Play-Doh and with holding a pencil, whatever. It's all
Yes.
the fine motor skills, which I can see doing that as a drummer, doing that with your weaker hand.
Mhm.
That makes I think I might try to do that actually. Not
Yes.
to bite your style, but that's a good idea.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah, yeah,
My daughter, when she started playing piano and then she got into playing drums as well, and I was like, "Okay, try to do everything," and she's like, "It's so weird." I know it's weird, but it has to become less weird. That's
right,
the
right.
right?
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
that's
thing.
that's so awesome. That's such a brilliant idea. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because when you're playing and with practicing, you're trying to work on your deficiencies.
Mhm.
Your weaker hand is always the elephant in the room as far as like, oh, what should I work on today? I'll work on my right hand because it just
Yeah.
whacks the snare drum a lot. Where your good hand is doing all the doing all
All
the
the intricate work, right?
color. Yeah, all the color. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
trying to
try to that just the thought of, like, writing, consistently with my left hand gives me the chills. Like, I
yeah,
just
yeah, no, same with the right. It just
yeah.
I have a buddy, there was this band, The Craze, like Krays, Johnny, the singer, well, he played drums for my friend Roger Moret's band. Anyway, he played on a right-handed kit, and he learned how to play drums on his grandfather was a timbale player.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and he learned how to play on the timbales, and then he learned how to play drum kit. So he'd play right-handed, open-handed, okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
playing a hi-hat with his left hand, do a drum fill, and then playing his ride cymbal with his right hand,
Mhm.
riding there, and then hitting the snare with his left, and then coming back when he's on the hi-hat, open-handed like that, and just ripping fills around the kit, and just it's second nature to him. And seeing
Yes.
that was like pretty much fully ambidextrous because he could sit down on my kit and he could sound very proficient.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible. That's just so the whole, ambidextrous thing and limb independence. And of course, like all drummers work toward limb independence
Yeah,
always. It's a
of course.
lifetime goal.
It is. Yeah.
Um, but there are just some drummers out there that you see play and you're like a Marco Miniman just kind of pops into my head. And it just is like, how is that human?
It's
How?
effortless too. It's effortless. They're
Yeah.
just doing it effortlessly, and it's so fun to watch because
Yes.
what's he gonna hit that cymbal with? What, like,
Yes.
where is he gonna land and how?
Yeah.
Because I imagine they're
Absolutely.
either consciously or subconsciously using the rudiments or whatever just to, doing it, single, 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 double, and then landing,
Mhm.
landing where they need to land.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Who were some of your influences, your drumming influences growing up? You mentioned John Bonham.
John Bonham, of course, Clive Burr, and Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden. But
Mhm.
I love the intricacy of Nico McBrain, and his kick drum foot is legendary.
Yeah.
The guy, I thought he had switched to double bass at one point because it's like you can't do that. Like
Mhm.
with one foot. Then I saw a video. Of course, they got a camera aimed right at his foot. Holy cow! And Clive
Yeah.
Burr had a really cool military sort of style in the really awesome fast hi-hat hand. Those guys, Cozy Powell, Ian Pace, of course, from Deep Purple, awesome.
Mhm.
And then Art Blakey. I dug very lyrical drum style. Joe Morello, just because reading about John Bonham and who he liked,
Yeah.
checking out Joe Morello with Dave Brubeck, and just
Yeah.
like his solos, like his solo and Castilian drums is just so cool. And Bonham bit a lot of his style, a lot of his like little licks there for Moby Dick.
Mhm.
Uh, those dudes, Will Shepler, who he played for Agnostic Front for many years. He was a Madball for a long time, but his style, I really dug his style for faster hardcore stuff, and he did a lot of just really grandiose, like almost again military style stuff on the toms. It
Like
really
marching style.
yeah, just also very martial style, martial sounding, stuff on the toms, and just
Mhm.
I took a lot of that from him. I think for a lot of the Dropkick Murphys stuff, a lot of the tom work,
Mhm.
and Don Kirby, my teacher, was a big influence. He like the stuff that he had me learn as a kid. I think really, Ringo Starr, because the first song I ever learned was "Come Together" by the Beatles.
Oh, that's great.
Pretty kind of unorthodox kind of
Yeah.
drumming style in that, just the
Yeah.
whole the ride hi-hat and just down the fill down the toms for
Mhm.
for for a 9-year-old is kind of a weird one. But
Absolutely.
you know, but his like, like my dad always said, listen to the Beatles, which of course any sane person does. Uh, and okay, you hear that thing he's doing on the drums. Sounds simple, right? Yeah. Why don't you try doing it? And try doing it well. It's just weird stuff. And I know the Beatles had other drummers playing here and there, but Ringo
Mhm.
Starr did a lot of really cool stuff. Like
He
really, really cool
did.
stuff. Played to the song really well. And played, there's the whole, you know, uh learning what not to play, and
Mhm.
learning when to take your foot off the gas as far as is a challenge for I think a lot of drummers, and is a big one for me. And hearing
Yes.
guys like that, just knowing when to play it straight,
Mhm.
and then they throw in
Yes.
some little fill, and like, ooh, that's nice, it makes it
Yeah.
useful.
I agree with that. I think there's a lot of talk about like the space in the music being just as important as what you play, the notes you play, right? And I think for us as drummers, one thing that is hard at is making the space feel full. So you're right?
Yeah,
Like
you're
am
so
I
right.
describing it right? I don't
But that's
know.
so true. Making the space have weight, right?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
not
You don't
not
want it to
not
feel
not
empty.
yeah, you don't want it to feel empty. You want it to
Yeah.
feel profound, right?
Right.
And that's something that
Meaningful.
I need more of that. I tell you, like
Me too. Me
the
too.
other day, like I was talking to somebody. Maybe I was talking to my dad. No, I was talking to another drummer, buddy of mine, who's going to be doing doing a show for a band he's not used to playing with, and like, well, dude, like, here's what I've been doing. I'm setting the metronome to 40 beats per minute and playing a straight blues for like an hour and just trying not to do any fills or anything. Because playing in the band I'm playing in, it's pretty high energy, fast, and pretty busy. And it's like over the years I've lost the knack to just be able to just play nice and slow and steady and sell how it sounds and not have it be awkward. Real slow blues, like almost like the speed of like Since I've Been Loving You by Zeppelin, just real slow 12 bar, real simple, real slow, and consistent. And I was like, man, this is so much harder than I remember doing, as a kid,
So as a kid, you don't overthink it, I think, like you do when you are an adult. I don't know.
Because when you're a kid, that might be the extent of your proficiency right there. Playing that blues beat, simple. Whereas you're an adult, you could be doing so many other things, and you have a million songs going through your head that, I could do this little fill here or whatever. But no, I just want to play it straight. And just trying to do that is like trying to get back to the basics. Is you have some people that they'll practice, guitarists who will just practice their their scales like real simple. Like, why are you practicing that? Like, well, you can always get better at it, right? Drumming, practicing single stroke rolls, like on the snare drum, making sure they're consistent, because you gain that muscle memory, and you
repetition.
Repetition, because you lose sight. You lose sight of things sometimes. I think I do. And it's and just working on these simple things can be beneficial.
I agree. For sure. I love it. Well, I want to hear what is next for you. What are you up to? What are you working on? What is next for you? And what is next for the Dropkick Murphys?
Well, for me, I'm just I moved to New Hampshire in last August, and I now I lived in South Boston for many years. So we had a house, but it was very small, and if you're in the city, everything's tiny. So we have a lot more room now. So I can finally walk downstairs to my cellar and play my drums in the morning, which is a blessing. It's beautiful to be able to do. Love it. I'm actually working on soundproofing the room and making a small, very rudimentary studio. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I have some microphones, I have some compressors, and so I'm working on getting that together, just to kind of just to be able to throw ideas down and shoot it over to the other guys in the band. That can sound decent, and put it on Logic so I can throw it to them and they can put something down on, and pass it back and forth, whatever. I'm a little ways from Boston now, so getting together is takes more planning these days, especially everybody's got kids and stuff. So, families. So getting that together, and then the band, we have an album coming out on May 12th, Okima Rising. It's we did one album that came out last October, November, called This Machine Still Kills Fascists, which was it's the unpublished lyrics of Woody Guthrie. He has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of unpublished songs. I know that Wilco did an album full of his unpublished lyrics many years ago, Mermaid Ave, and they did another one as well. I forget the name. And the Guthrie estate, Woody Guthrie's daughter Nora approached us with a fat stack of lyrics to put to. It's quite an honor, and the guy was an American institution. Gave us these lyrics to put to music, and so we did 2 albums worth, and I think we did about 22 songs, and there was enough for 2 distinct albums. So we released the one album last year, and this next one, Okima Rising, it's I guess the first album, This Machine Still Kills Fascists, was a bit of a surprise for people. It was a bit more of an Americana thing, country-ish, I dare say. In this album, Okima Rising, is a bit more towards the Dropkick Murphys style that people would know in a more folky style. So that's coming out in May. we've got punk rock bowling coming up. We're doing that out in Vegas. That'll be a lot of fun. A lot of good bands. The Anti-Heroes are playing, which are really fun. We're doing there's a show in West Palm Beach in Florida. It escapes me right now, unfortunately. But, yeah, so that's a street festival in West Palm in Florida. And after that, we're playing up in Newfoundland. It's in St. John's. It's on George Street in St. John's, which is an awesome area. We're playing an outdoor show there. And this summer we're going over to Europe. We're playing the Wacken Festival in Germany, which is a legendary festival. Playing, I believe, right before Iron Maiden, which really excites me.
Yes, I was just gonna say that's amazing.
It is, yeah. For some reason, the metal crowd in Europe really digs us, and we're very thankful for it. So we're playing that. We're playing a bunch of really awesome festivals around Europe this summer, which with some really killer bands. So that's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Great.
And then in the fall we're getting some ideas together, booking some stuff which I can't really divulge yet, but it's going to be
top secret
stuff. Oh yeah, good proper tour this fall, and the band's going from strength to strength. We've been fortunate that we've held people's attention for this long somehow, because in a fickle world, our fans are some pretty awesome people that really support us, which is unreal. Super
supportive. I love that. It has to feel great.
Yeah, it's like we're one of those bands that we have like a cult following, I think, and it's those were always the bands, like for me growing up, whether it be the original Misfits or bands like Cock Sparrow or Zeppelin or bands that are Motorhead, bands that have this like cult following, and we somehow managed to be one of those bands, which is it's kind of a cool thing to kind of look back, kind of be able to see the forest for the trees and just be like, wow, that's really amazing. We have these awesome fans that it's like almost a way of life for them,
For sure, yeah. It is. You guys are lucky that way. It's pretty awesome.
We're very very grateful. Yeah.
For sure. And I will link all of those things. I'll link the website where people can follow you guys and find, dates that you're playing and all of that. And for anyone listening, how do they follow you on Instagram? You're at, is it DKM? Remind me.
Oh, mine.
Your Instagram. Yes.
My Instagram. It's Matt _DKM.
Perfect. And I will link that as well. But for anyone listening,
I'm pretty boring on Instagram, but the band has a lot of cool stuff and content going on. Sure. So that's I mean, you can just search Dropkick Murphys on Instagram, you'll be able to find it. That's always very up to date. And there's a lot of this we just put out a video for the song Gotta Get to Peekskill or Break a Leg or Die. And that's featuring guys from the Violent Femmes singing along with us and playing along with us, and that's a pretty fun one. So yeah, check it out if you're into our kind of unoffensive Irish punk rock.
I love that. It's hard to kind of put you guys into a genre. It is.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Right, but that's also a good thing because you kind of transcend genres and you have probably a fan base that's not kind of just one type of music.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, and I do agree, because even from the first album on, we've had different styles. And I know people think Dropkick Murphys and they think maybe something like a stereotypical, like, oh, shipping up to Boston or something. That's like one facet of what we do. We have stuff we have more like the Clash style punk stuff. We have some like hardcore punk, fast, crazy stuff. This with the new albums, they are a sort of like a sidebar departure, but it's Americana-ish, folksy stuff. So it's I guess you can say there's something for everyone.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. Well, we'll look forward to the new album. And again, I'll link everything so that people can follow along and check things out. And I so appreciate you coming on today and catching up.
I'm among legends here. This is really cool. I really appreciate it. And it's we've known each other for many years. It's great to see you again.
So great to see you too. I'll have to get out to a show and see you in person again. And
drop me a line.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
for sure. I'm going to do it. Thank you so much, Matt. It was great to see you. And we'll chat soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in today. Join us each Tuesday for new episodes of Sarah Hagan Backstage.